Hello, everybody. Welcome to my presentation, Dive into IDF for LX Part 2. I appreciate everybody that joined our first session, Part 1, back in fall of last year, and again at InPower last year as well. So here we are again. We're going to look at some customizations for the user interface. Going to give you some terminology, some helpful hints, some tips, some tricks, and hopefully get you into the vehicle that you can drive to your own destiny. So without further ado, I will advance the PowerPoint or slideshow for those people that are younger. First, again, for the agenda, we're going to do some introductions to terminology. We're going to look at the customized menu. We're going to look at cards, views, subsets, sorts, and presentation schemes. Each one of those plays a hand in customizing the user interface and making the user interface more streamlined for each person's usage. Anything you can touch virtually can be customized, be it by a user or IT, whatever kind of security structure your organization determines that they'd like to implement. Virtually everything is customizable. So there's a few ways to get into IDF. And again, in our first session, we described what IDF was. It's Infor Development Framework. Basically, think of it as your one-stop shop for data visualization for ERP data, IBM data, SQL server data, Oracle server data, etc. So anything and everything pretty much can connect to the IDF platform to view the data and get reports built over them. First, and traditionally, we were used to the PowerLink interface. For many, many years, it's been around. I've got 15 years of IDF experience. I used PowerLink probably solely for the first 10 years, as the next interface we'll talk about, NetLink, wasn't quite there yet, but they have put all the nuts and bolts into the NetLink product, and it is fantastic now, and I rarely use PowerLink. Some of you do not have the ability to use the NetLink new tech stack. You're on an older version of LX that doesn't support the newer framework, or you're not on maintenance anymore, so you're kind of stuck at a stale version. That's okay. I've worked across all versions of IDF, and we've got knowledge and know how to get the job done, regardless of versioning, regardless if you're on maintenance. We can find a way. So the next interface we'll talk about, again, I mentioned, is the NetLink interface. So you log in. These are kind of just the login screens to get you an idea of what you'll see for your logins, right? And then finally, the vehicle of choice, if you've adopted the entire Infor tech stack, is the SIW Anywhere interface, which kind of brings everything under the hood from Infor LX WebTop and the Infor IDF framework underneath one easy to use interface. Most of the screenshots we'll see today come from the System I workspace. There are a few that you'll notice I've taken outside of the workspace, just to give people that don't have the tech stack the ability to see what I'm talking about. So what do they look like when you get there, right? Well, when I get there, after I log in, the PowerLink client looks as such, and you can kind of see there's, the traditional Windows look from back in the Windows 95 days, right? So kind of dated, kind of not fresh. Everything you do pops up a new window, and you can end up virtually with 40 windows across your screen, depending upon how deep you are. So they've put a lot of effort into modernizing this application into what's called the NetLink application again. And you can kind of see it's a web browser-based interface. It's got, again, all the nuts and bolts, searches, customizations, integrator, anything you need to do, you can do in the web. There are a few stragglers that haven't been brought along into the NetLink interface, but that's okay. Very, very often we find things and we say, hey, those weren't there, and Infor is able to add them for us. And again, through SIW, once you log into SIW, you can see I've got a large screen here, a My Tasks kind of here on the right-hand side, and you see I've got a menu open for IDF. So for IDF, this is what it looks like. Not so graphical, not so many icons, and a more modern point quick and quick and streamlined. So you be able to pop these menus open. These are cards. You'd be able to pop those open and see the objects that are on them. So after we get there, and we've understood from session one, dive into IDF for LX, what can I do with IDF for in LX, right? We understand the IMV 100 is the enterprise items business object. We understand MRP 140 is the facility items business object. ACR 100 and ACP 100 are vendor's business object and the customer's business object, so on and so forth. And once you're able to equate what I'm doing in LX to doing the same thing in IDF, then this part of it becomes interesting, right? Now, how do I customize it? Oh, I can customize it. Yeah, you sure can. Fields, take away fields, put pertinent data where you want to, put only the programs that you want on these cards and whatnot. So we'll dive into how to do that next, right? So as you can see, we're going to customize, right? So to customize, the first thing we need to understand is the customized menu, right? So the customized menu in IDF does provide options for users to modify and personalize their interface. It allows you to change cards, views, subsets, sorts, presentation schemes, workspaces, workbenches if you're using older versions of IDF, global preferences, user preferences, so on and so forth, right? So it's a quite powerful menu, and I'll show you how to get to those momentarily. These are the key functions, again, of the customized menu. We talked about the views. We'll talk about in depth what each one of these are, right? So views, we're able to modify columns and layouts in a view. Cards, we're able to customize the structure and the attributes. Subsets, create filters to display specific records. Sorts, to organize these records, ascending or descending. And finally, presentation schemes, conditional formatting like red, if negative, those type of things. So what it looks like and how do I get there, right? So on my screen here, I've got a number of different screenshots. First screenshot you'll notice is from Workspace Anywhere. Workspace Anywhere, you can only customize from within a business object or through integrator. You can't do a main level cards like you can in NetLink and through PowerLink without a few more gyrations. I won't go into those, but there's a few more things to do to make the cards and things appear in SIW. But again, not a big deal. We've got the expertise and we can get you wherever you need to go. You'll notice again in the second screenshot here, we've got a customized menu in PowerLink and then a customized menu in NetLink from the main browsers. And then finally, what the customized menu looks like from inside of a business object. And you see, I did notice or mention workspaces, views, subsets, sorts, cards, preferences. So those things are all, again, accessed through the customized menu, and you control your own destiny from there. We'll advance a little bit. Once we get into a customized situation, we're going to customize a view, for instance, and we'll talk about what a view is in just a moment. This just gives you the framework of how to get there to customize virtually anything on that menu. It's going to bring you kind of the same interface and give you kind of the same options and the same layout to achieve these customizations. So we've got, again, a PowerLink view and a NetLink /SIW view. I wanted to kind of give you the side-by-side because the icons are in slightly different places. So just a side-by-side comparison so you weren't losing anything in the visualization there. You're able to create, copy, edit, delete, favorite these things. So again, if you have a long list of these things, let's say 50, you can favorite 5 of them and you'll only see the 5 unless you click the more button, right? That's the power of the favorites. You can see I've got general highlighted in both instances. So if I were to click the plus button or the new paper button in PowerLink, it would inherit all of the properties of the general record we're selecting. Or if we click the pencil, we would go right in to edit the general record. So we'll move on a little bit here, and you'll see once I clicked on that and clicked an edit or a create, you can see it brings up this large panel with available attributes, selected columns, your column details, any kind of customization you want to do to the title heading, the presentation width. If you'd like to allow mixed case in this, for instance, you don't want to show everything in caps, you'd like to see the mixed case or input the mixed case, you'd be able to do that there. And very, very selectable list here, sortable list to find what other fields you'd like to include, what fields you'd like to filter on, what fields you'd like to sort by, so on and so forth. So that kind of wraps up what the customization menu is and how to do these customization things. So I said some words in there and you're going, what the heck are those things? And why would I want to customize them? So first and foremost is a card, right? There's many types of cards, and we'll again get to that in a moment, but a card in IDF is a user interface component that presents data for a business object. It is also part of a card file, which contains multiple related cards for easy navigation. So I always tell everybody a card file is a collection of cards, and a card is a collection of information. Types of cards in IDF. There's a few. We'll get a picture that lists a few more in a moment, but you've got application cards. That represents business objects and display attributes. And let's think of the main IDF browser and where you're browsing to your main business objects like INV100/enterprise items. General cards. So once you're inside enterprise items and you click on a record, the general card is going to present itself and it's going to show the key fields of an object. You've got compound cards that can display multiple sections with different data attributes, such as header information in the top and detail information in the bottom. You've got text cards, so you can allow users to enter and manage freeform text comments, which is very handy, right? If you're in IDF and you want to take notes about some research you're doing, those text cards are very beneficial. And again, you can use those to any way that you see fit as well. History cards, right? Historical records with timestamps. When was this done? Who did it? Those type of things. And then finally, for your newer IDF installations with the new IDF R10, there's the attachment viewer cards, right? So we're able to attach PDFs or images to these records or documents to these records and have a card and go right and view those records with very much ease instead of having to go and download these files and open the files to view them. So here's examples of the other cards that I spoke of. We've got, again, the attachment viewer, attribute cards, compound cards, graph cards, list cards, overview cards, related cards, and tabbed cards. We won't discuss all of those today, but we'll have a fair understanding of how to utilize those by the end of the session. So, okay, we're in the application. You said there's a lot of cards. So these are cards, right? These are the main browser cards, right? Or the application cards. And you see a drop down here that says default. This is the card file. The default card file is a collection of all the cards you see highlighted. This is in the PowerLink browser. And this is in the Netlink browser. You can kind of see the same thing verbatim. Again, we've got the default card file and the cards beneath of it. You can have many card files. You can have many cards. You can set global preferences or personal preferences to launch to the cards or card files of your choosing. Cards, again, inside of SystemI Workspace look a little differently because it is not a graphical, is graphical of an interface, so busy. It's more text menu driven. So you kind of see the same thing, enterprise financials, materials management, and the subcards that are underneath of it. You just click on the folders and it'll continue to power expand through those. Click on your objects and it'll launch your business object. And once your business object is open in SystemI Workspace, PowerLink or Netlink, they look virtually the same for this. There's going to be a list that pops up. You're going to either click on the item on the list or use the split view in new IDF R10, and you're able to see all of these cards once you select the record. And there's many of them. We discussed the general card that has the key data about the records, inventory, activities, history. We went over these in the part 1 of this series, if you'd like to look back at that and understand a little bit more about the meat that's in those. So any of the cards that you see there, any of the cards that we talked about, another huge point that I always like to try to drive home is the IDF help. There's help available across the application to really help you get into the nuts and bolts of how these things work. You're able to pull up the help, search for cards. It'll show you the customizing cards thing. You can go down and click on any one of these links, and it will give you in detail how to use those cards, the limitations of the cards, so on and so forth. And also for views, subsets, sorts, cards, all that stuff's in help. Anything you need to know is in there. So don't sleep on that. Make sure you look at it if you have a question. And we'll move on to views, right? We know what a card is now. It's a collection of information or a collection of applications. And we always hear views. Why would I want to customize a view? Well, just like in Microsoft Excel or similar, you've got column headings. And a column heading in IDF is called a view, right? Defines how the list of records is displayed, determines the attributes, columns shown, their order, formatting. And we saw a few of those things in the customization menu earlier. We're able to tighten those things up, change the column headings, put some presentation schemes on them, and so forth. Key aspects of a view: controls the data presentation, determines which fields are displayed. It's customizable. We can modify existing views or create new ones, dependent upon your need and your security. Public versus private views. Public views are shared, private views are user specific. You may have a situation where you've got a private view that is the best thing since sliced bread. Your IT department can go ahead and make that a public view if they see fit upon your request. Temporary and save views, right? These are just when you're trying to think around and design and maybe develop how to get to some data. Temporary views and temporary are very, versus the save views, are very handy because you don't clutter up and have that large list of many views while you were just trying to figure out what you were up to. So those are the different types of views and some examples of views. You can see in this instance, we've opened enterprise items. You see I have highlighted the general drop-down menu. This is first drop-down menu is the list of views that you have available at your fingertips to select. You can see item description, class, item type, product lifecycle, and status. I'm going to change the view, right? What's that going to give me? You can see I've selected on-hand inventory, and you can see now I've got the on-hand, the opening balance, month-to-date issues, and I didn't capture the whole screen. Just wanted to give you the high level, hey, this changes these fields here. And finally, we'll change it once more. And these three that we're displaying here are shipped out of the box from Infor. Your general, your reorder point, and your on-hand inventory. You've got stocking unit and measure, class, on-hand, allocated, and so forth in these records. So those are the views that are in enterprise items by default. You can, again, copy, create, drag and drop in these instances. You can take class and drag it and drop it over to where you'd like it. And if you want to reuse and reuse and reuse without having to constantly do that, you can hit the customize menu and go ahead and create it, save it, public, private, however you need to save it, and use it again and again and again. And we spoke about freeze columns briefly in the invitation for the presentation today. Freeze columns are not available outside of NetLink R10, but they are a way for you to freeze key data such as item and item description, and have the rest of your list be able to scroll around so you don't have to scroll all the way back to the left to figure out which item you are looking at when you finally got to the extreme right of the data. So that is, again, through the customization menu, and you're able to use the highlighted area freeze column by selecting which columns you'd like to leave a freeze after and striking the button, and it will in fact put a freeze statement in there for you. Very handy they added that for us on the latest release. So that pretty much wraps up what views are. And we'll move on to subsets. And these all use kind of cascading down, right? A card, a view, a subset. So subsets in IDF is a way of filtering the data that is in the view. Very easy to use to create these subsets. The key aspects of the subset, again, are filter the data on the display, limit the records based on conditions. You can create or modify subsets, and there's also a filter row, right? We talked about in the The invitation, if you're constantly using the filter row and putting in the same criteria, you could build it into a subset. So you don't have to do that. You can just click from a list and select it, and it'll go right to it or prompt you for it, however you like there. Logical operators, right? We use and or conditions to refine results. There's many operand types, constant values, lists, field values, or ranges that you can kind of use to skinny your query down. And then finally, cascading subsets. Multiple subsets can be applied together, and we'll give you an example of that in a moment. So much like enterprise items, when we entered it for views and we saw the general highlighted, just to the right of the views is the subset menu. The subset menu does display anything that is delivered by Infor, and you can see one called Tony Items that was created by my boss when we were investigating the IDF environment. So anything that's created and saved public can also be in this list. Again, we talked about maybe these lists would get long and you only have a few that you'd like to use. This would be the opportune time to use a favorite. So we've went ahead and we've selected that drop down. I selected a subset out of that list, which was item type equal to. It popped up and I selected M for manufactured item and hit the continue button. Once the continue button was hit, you see that item type was selected in the subset, and the list is now sorted to only M items. And we spoke about cascading subsets. So I like to skinny this list down even more. And again, you do see the filter row here, and that is able to be used in tandem with subsets as well, or by itself, however you want to use it. It's there for you. Has many operators and operands to use as well by clicking the little icon to the left of each field and setting and choosing which operand you'd like. So cascading is as simple as, once you have sorted your list with a subset, selecting the next subset from the drop-down list and clicking the append to active subset checkbox. Once you do that and you see I've selected the FI fabricated items and hit continue, it has put a plus item class because we have in fact appended to something else and sorted the list and filtered the list down to only the FI class and the M item type. And that kind of wraps up what a subset is. Now, sorts are kind of self-explanatory, right? I've got this view, I've got this data in a subset, and now I'd like that subset to be sorted in a particular fashion. So again, it's just kind of what it says on the screen. It sorts the list. So how do I do that, and what are the key aspects? Custom ordering, multi-levels. You can throw subtotals on there to group records and calculate when you sort changes. Export capability, sorting definitely influences the way you export. There is exporting capability native in Netlink and native in PowerLink. Also from System I Workspace you can download from as well. So these sorts do influence those reports and exports as well. And integration with views and subsets, right? We said they kind of cascade together and all work in tandem, work right along with those views and subsets we've been talking about. So in PowerLink, it's a little different to get to than in Netlink, right? Again, we can always hit the customize menu and hit the sorts button that's in the list, but you'll notice this little binocular set here in enterprise items in PowerLink. If you're able to hit that binoculars, it will pull up this little menu, gives you access to your sorts, subsets, and views all in one handy place. And just to the right of them, you'll see the icons that allow you to get in there and edit as well or customize. In Netlink or System I Workspace, you'll see at the gray bar that I've referred to many times throughout past presentations has the grid settings button. Once you're able to open this grid settings button, you see the same net result of the view subset sort. You're able to hit your sort that you choose, hit continue, and it will sort your list. And finally, once we're making a sort, just like we demonstrated earlier, you're able to select fields from a list and choose whether they're ascending, descending, if you'd like some subtotals, so on and so forth. And that's really sorts, right? Sorts are pretty basic, right? What way do I want the list to happen? And then presentation schemes, finally, Presentation scheme in IDF controls how the data is displayed and viewed, and it allows users to apply formatting such as colors, bold text, emphasis to enhance the data presentation. Some key features: customizable formatting, right? Any attributes can be modified for display. Criteria-based formatting applies styles when certain conditions are met. Color coding, we can change the background or the foreground colors of the records. Emphasis options, we can make it bold, italic, or both. And then enhance the readability, right? Quickly identify the quick data points. I'm very known for scrolling through a list and being able to pick out data anomalies. This helps highlight those data anomalies or key points of data that you're looking for very visually. And then an example of a presentation scheme, right? So we're entering into an edit view session, right? We started in enterprise items. You can see the tabular format in System I Workspace. We started at System I Home. We selected enterprise items. And then from enterprise items, I hit my customize menu and said, I want to edit the enterprise item view. And that leaves us at this menu here. Once we're in this menu here, you can see that out of the box, Infor has given you the item with the scheme of read if suspended. So this scheme can be applied to an entire view, or it can be applied to particular fields. So you'll have to determine which is best for your use case and go down that path. In this instance, they needed the field to be read, so we'll just do the fields read and not an entire line read, if you catch my drift there. So if you'd like to edit these or add new ones, again, you hit the button next to this. It'll bring up a subsequent menu, and you'll be able to do the editing, adding new criteria, red if suspended, red if negative, green if positive, green if over 10,000, those type of instances. So not only did Infor deliver item read if suspended out of the box, they also delivered record status in the same view to be read if suspended. And then once we've got through the creation of those and the addition of those, we can show the result of I've got an all records in my general view, and you do see that in my general view, the items are read that are in fact categorized as suspended. So that is my presentation today. I will open the floor for many questions. I'm sure there are many. Please let me have it, and I will see what I can answer for you. I do want to thank everybody for their time today. Please share this presentation with anybody that would like to know more about IDF. Please also stop by the Crossroads RMC group on Work Out Loud and click on the videos tab to view our existing videos that we've done from our dashboard through our NextTrack MES product through these IDF for LX session series. Again, thank you for your time today. We'll speak again soon.